All right,
Yep. Go.
perfect. Hello, I'm Marcin, head barista from Triangle and Donabate, and with me today is the Fergie Brown or Fergus Brown from Roasted Brown in Delgany, our main dealer of the perfect drug, which is coffee. Thank you, Fergus, for joining.
Pleasure. Yeah. Thanks.
Prefer Fergie or Fergus or Ferg?
Ferg or Fergus is too. We'll leave Fergie to the superstars, I think.
Okay, Fergus. Um, our customers love your coffee, and that has to say to you straight away. And Stephen, when they pick it up, the coffee for the Triangle were tasted quite a lot from most of probably available coffees on the market, and choose yours because he thought that's the delicious coffee, and I want to go with him. Could you tell me a little bit of your background or your history, why and how the Roasted Brown started?
Yeah. I mean, I'll try and give you the quick version, but I mean, what a lot of people don't know about me is that I left school when I was 15. I wasn't great at school, so yeah, my parents just thought, what would you think about coming out of school early and joining the family business? So my dad has a car cleaning business, and I thought about it for a while and thought, yeah, I think, I want to do something different. I hate school. I just sit there all day waiting for break times, And so at 15, I joined the workforce and did that for about 5 years. And then actually, when I came about 20 and after traveling the world a little bit, I gave up the car cleaning thing when I was about 19. I went and traveled around Australia, and then actually realized what I did want to do with my life, and I wanted to get a little bit into music and recording. And so I went to college and studied to be a sound engineer, and ended up working as house engineer in a recording studio in Dublin for a few years, until my ears got damaged and I had to give that up. So I kind of took the teaching approach for a while, but it just wasn't the same, And so again, just went back, hit the road, went traveling, spent a lot of time down in New Zealand, fell in love with the coffee shop scene. I was by no means a coffee snob. I was definitely a caffeine addict at that stage, but I would have drunk anything that said coffee on it. But I loved cafes in New Zealand, and they were always so warm and inviting, and food was always interesting, and they were open late at night, and people were drinking cappuccinos at midnight, and it's very different to a Dublin scene, and so I loved that environment. It was quite romantic, and so how I got into coffee was with a dream to set up a coffee shop that would do hospitality and community really, really well. And so got home and set up a coffee van, a little 3-wheeler, and then I bought another coffee van, a 4-wheeler, and then I built another unit out of plywood. And within a shorter space of time, I had 3 different coffee machines moving in 3 different directions at different festivals and markets, and started building up a reputation that way, not knowing anything. I mean, we started off using dark roasted coffee that I thought was great. and just kind of, invested a lot of integrity into making it as best as we could, even though what we were using probably wasn't. The knowledge of that came later. But that's where Roasted Brown started, was like traveling the country, trying to make good coffee with not great coffee. And
that's absolutely amazing.
So basically what happened then was it just got too tiring, and we'd eventually progressed onto, we did start learning about coffee and progressed onto Badger and Dodo coffee. We started buying coffee from Brock, and that was way better. And he's an ocean of knowledge when it comes to coffee.
From Cork.
Yeah. So he was never shy about telling us that our coffee could be better, and so he really led us in an important direction. And so then eventually Colin Harmon started getting in touch, and he heard about us, and he started selling us has-been coffee, and And actually, it was when I was doing coffee at Dublin Web Summit. Um, Colin got me that gig, the Dublin Web Summit, and it was huge. Like it
Mm.
was really good for our business and our brand. And so we used his coffee for that because he got us that job. And then he got me our first ever premises, which was a cafe that I'd looked at 6 years beforehand, thinking, oh, I'd love to have this place. And Colin called me in the middle of Dublin Web Summit and said, hey, look, I know of a premises that's coming up. Would you be interested in owning a shop? And literally the night before he did that, I'd only said to my wife, I'm tired of dragging coffee machines around the
Ah,
country,
yeah.
and we need to open a shop. And so it just turned out that it was the very same premises that I had always said I'd love to own a coffee shop. And so that was upstairs in Temple
Film
Bar.
base.
Yeah. And so we started off, then we thought it was only right to use Has Been Coffee, Colin's coffee from the get-go, because he got us that place. And it was just so funny, I didn't know what I was doing at all. I'd never cooked in a kitchen. I'd never been a chef. And here we are prepping salads, prepping sandwiches, baking brownies. And then Colin shows up with his first box of coffee. There you go. And I'm like, so what do I do with this? And he said, well, like it's 20 by 1.555. And I thought, okay, I had no idea what he was talking about. So when he left, I just Googled, coffee 20 by 1.555 and realized what a recipe was.
Yeah. Like for everything in the catering business, the recipes are the key.
Yeah. So that was my barista training.
Yeah.
And so then just from that point on, like the interest just snowballed. But also the dream kind of came true in many ways, because that cafe was just beautiful and community there was fantastic. And
Yeah, at that time I think that was my one of the favorites place to hang up.
Yeah, it was great. So that's where we did a lot of our learning. And I think in the back of my mind I'd always thought we would roast, and it's always been in the name, Roasted Brown, and Brown being my last name. But I always had, again, a romantic idea of what roasting would be, and little did I know that it's a lot less romantic in reality.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of how we got here anyway. Yeah.
So when we're talking about the bad coffee, good coffee, dark roast, brown roast, and so on, what, in your opinion, makes the coffee taste good, taste great, taste delicious?
Yeah, roasting is one link of the chain. But as you know, coffee is a complex product, and there's a lot of links in the chain, and there's a lot of variables, and it's very, very hard to control all of those variables. So we do our best to source high scoring coffee that's well grown, where farmers are paid well, and so we try and start off as early in the chain as possible, getting good green bean. And then we have a Laring, you can see it there behind me. That's the only one in the country. That's, it uses 40% less energy than any coffee roasting machine. And it allows us to have a control over the coffee that other models of machine don't necessarily allow you to have. And that helps because we can kind of dip into deeper levels of sweetness and body, but maintain acidity without over caramelization or without underdevelopment. So it's really,
right.
It's clever. So that's a huge part of it. But then working with good baristas is really key, and because coffee is one of those bizarre products where you like hand it to somebody and you say, okay, well, this farmer's done a great job and we've done the best as we can roasting it. Now, will you finish that for me, please?
Yeah, so the recipe is important, as we mentioned.
Yeah, and not just a recipe, but an intuition and an understanding of the flexibilities within a recipe. And that's what I love about a really good barista, or even say 2 or 3 really good baristas side by side, is they'll all have their nuance and their little bit of difference,
Yeah.
And I love that too. But when it comes to roasting and dark and light and all that, I've kind of, to be honest, I steer away from those terms now. Dark roast being the one maybe that I have no qualms about saying I don't like dark roasted coffee, and I would question whether anyone should. But in terms
of probably preferences of the people, like,
yeah, like personally, I just don't like that taste of carbon, in coffee. And so I hate it. It actually makes me gag now, you know. But then, you know, there's a level of underdevelopment too that I don't like. I think there's a sweetness to be exploited in every coffee. And sometimes I think it's fashionable to like what they call flash roast and do it really quick. And I think you can lose out on a lot of sweetness in
Yeah.
that area too. So what we kind of talk about is when we're cupping and we're QCing and we're roasting and measuring degrees of roast, is we're talking about development, and we're trying to aim for optimum development where we have good body and great sweetness and we still have acidity and it's still a clean cup of coffee without any of those toasty kind of carbon flavors. And that's what we focus on. And that's not to say that that's the only way by any means, but that's how we kind of aim for getting a good tasty cup of coffee, you know.
So then, is it important where your coffee is landed, in which coffee shops or which retail shops for you?
Yeah, for a few reasons. You know, there's obviously yeah, well, like I said, there's many links in the chain, you know, and um, it can be hard not to micromanage, but then it's also really good not to micromanage because you can't control everything, you know. But when we're taking on partners or customers, whatever you want to call it, you know, we do really make sure that we're working with people who, one, have a passion for tasty coffee. And if they don't know a lot about coffee, that's fine, as long as we see a passion for them, that they do want to know a bit more. Um, and quite often, you know, it might come down to people will put their money where their mouth is, and it's expensive to make tasty coffee consistently, and you really have to invest a lot of money into the right equipment that will give you the same temperature every time you pull a shot of espresso, you know. And you know, there's cheaper machines out there that will, you know, have massive temperature fluctuations, but then you're brewing your coffee at different temperature fluctuations all the time, and inconsistency is really big there. So we want to work with people who understand that, and they have no problem investing in the consistent equipment, you know.
Mm.
And that's not to say we won't work with people who can't afford it, but what we'll do there is we'll work on a stepping stone system. Again, if we see a passion, you know, like I really want to get there, but I can't afford it now. Well, then we'll put a plan in place. We're like, okay, well, here's how we can get there, you know. And if you are doing these numbers and you can afford this equipment, are you up for that? And if they say yes, well, then we're up for that journey and enjoy that journey a lot. Um, we don't want to work with places who kind of want to pretend they're doing good coffee. We want to work with places who want to do good coffee, you know. And there's a lot of spin around specialty coffee, and the word specialty coffee is used by people who aren't specialty coffee. And so you just have to kind of figure out who's honest and who's into coffee and who genuinely wants to make a good cup of coffee. And then first, and then most importantly, and what's become more importantly for me over the years, is that farmers are being paid well and producers are being paid well and workers on those farms are being paid well. And we put a lot on the line as a company to make sure that that's happening, and we're taking that responsibility on our end. Um, but what happens is a lot of people seem to want to talk about how farmers are paid well, and they'll rely on a certification to tell that story. We won't do that. We'll kind of look past the certification and actually want to be on the ground and see, are they genuine smiles on those people's faces, you know? And that comes at a cost, you know. And everyone wants to be sustainable and good for the environment and good for humanity, but do they really want to pay for it? You know, do
Yeah.
people want to pay 354 euro for a flat white? I do, because I know where that money's going, you know. But some people will still say, but I can get it for 220 down the road, you know, and they'll care more for their extra €2 in their pocket than for the life that's been ruined on the other end of that farming chain, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's important too, that we're working with people who understand that, you know, it costs money to do this sustainably and to do it in a humane way, you know.
So have you visited any of the origin? Have you got any of your favorite coffee origin?
Yeah, I have. The last 3 years now, I've been traveling quite a bit to Origin, kind of prematurely. You know, it's we're a very small business. We're a small roastery, as you can see. Like, this is our roastery. You know, this is
Yeah.
roasted. So that's it. And we, you know, you typically need to be set, you know, roasting a few tons of coffee a week before you can afford to go to Origin and start bringing in containers. But we kind of did it a little bit sooner and paid a bit of a higher price on shipping because I kind of needed to be more connected to it. I knew I was ignorant, and I knew I wasn't getting the full story, and so to kind of control those variables a bit more, I needed to go. So I go to Ethiopia every year. If it wasn't for the pandemic, I would be in Ethiopia right now,
All right.
and I'd be there again late summer. Brazil once to twice a year, and Costa Rica, Guatemala. And yeah, so we've kind of, because of the way we buy, we've narrowed down to working with just a few, maybe 5 producers, because that way we can build sustainability and loyalty into how we buy and how we sell coffee. And so if we're like paying those people good money, the coffee should be getting better all the time, and the relationships get better, and it's a much nicer story. It's a much better working environment. But I love the coffees that we buy from Ethiopia and Costa Rica. I'm in love with them, and they are expensive enough coffees. They're high scoring coffees. And what I love about them is they're produced by very normal people, but they're producing scores that are really, really high. And that's the kind of coffee I love to work with,
High scored coffee.
Well,
Were they produced in a proper manner and by people who you got the connection with it?
yeah, and it's I mean, it's funny. There's kind of two types of high scoring coffee, and we're working with very normal setups and farmers who are just trying to do their best with what they have, and maybe get $10 a kilo for their coffee, and we can get amazing coffees off these people. And then you can get coffees that are getting, anywhere between $50 and $100 per kilo for coffees that have the same high scoring label on them, but quite often they're not that much better, And so again, there's a bit of a fashion thing in there, and there's a.
So it was. Sorry to interrupt you. That was Juromina a few years ago who won Irish Brewers Cup, roasted by
That was
yourself.
Rochelle, Rochelle. That was, it was our Romina. We roasted it and she brewed it.
Yeah, amazing. Like my favorite coffee is my favorite origin is the Kenyans, and I remember like for many years, the Kenyan coffees were so juicy, so sweet, so clean, so flavorsome, and suddenly, like I don't know, maybe since 3 years back, I can't find any of those nice Kenyans. Can you say something about that? Can you reckon what's happening? Or is it possible to have that some similar coffees on the market soon?
I hope so. I mean, we kind of need to be really careful about what conclusions we jump to there with Kenyans, because we're all still trying to figure it out, and in some ways you might think there's no good Kenyans anymore, and I wouldn't say that's necessarily true. I think climate change anyway is having a massive impact, and we're seeing it first and foremost, it seems, in Kenyan coffees, and so basically what good roasters have learned is that the profile has changed for Kenyan coffees, and maybe it will come back around. I really hope it does, but it's really important not to write them off and say we're not going to buy them anymore, because if that happens, there won't be Kenyan coffee.
There will no future for Kenyan coffee, right?
That's always a tricky thing for a roaster and a green bean buyer, is we always have to think of the humans at the end of the chain. And even if we're not getting the result we want, we still have to invest and help them find a way to get back, And so Kenyan coffees used to be like drinking Ribena sometimes.
Yeah. My body.
It was amazing, and you could leave them in your press at home for 3 months, and you take them out, and they'd still taste great.
My favorite was like a cold brew make from the Kenyan coffees, and like that's like goosebumps straight away. Body got it.
So I mean, we try really hard. We don't buy enough Kenyan to buy direct Kenyan, so we try and buy the best Kenyan coffees we can find from the best importers, who we trust are making sure people are paid well. But I mean, at the moment, it doesn't feel like we're getting in flavor what we're paying in money. But we're gonna stick with it, and like.
Do you think that might be those few new varieties which were introduced lately to the Kenyans, like or are you
Yeah,
alive
but I mean, the new varieties are being introduced because of other
of
issues.
climate change?
Yeah, so it's not, and look, there's so many varieties that taste fantastic, and so there's no reason why they can't again. I think there's just a much bigger thing to be figured out with really good agronomists and growers, and we'll learn it later when they do,
Yeah,
so just to be patient. But I mean, we've had some very solid Kenyans. They, scored about um 87 and a half, you know, but they weren't, like the Kamwangi double A of
yeah,
3 or 4 years ago, which was like a 92 scoring coffee for €20 a kilo at green, So um, they're still the same price, but like you said, the same attributes aren't there. But they have changed and they're still good. And if you think of it in terms of, okay, this profile has changed and how good is it at its new characteristic? And that's then how we measure it, And so it's a bit more rhubarby and a bit more juicy grapefruity. And then there's
yeah. It
like,
comes to the red fruits rather than
yeah,
black fruits, blackberries.
yeah. And it's blackberries instead of black currants. And that's a big
Yes,
difference,
yes,
There's a lot
yes,
more
yes.
tart to a blackberry than a blackcurrant.
Yeah,
So yeah, we just have to. I mean, I had a Kamwangi double A last year, which was very close to what it was 4 years ago. Another roaster got their hands on it. We also had a Kamwangi double A from a different coffee importer, and it was nowhere near the same
mm.
quality green bean, And so it's just really hard to keep on top of that. But Kenya's a tricky one. But I do know a lot of roasters, including ourselves, struggled to get the same kicks out of Kenyans last year.
Yeah.
So
So if we're talking about the future in the coffee, which we can't directly touch it, like we, okay, you as a roaster can get implements for farms, obviously, but um, let's look on the shorter picture about yourself. What do you think? What's your future for roasted brown? Do you want to grow up a little bit or stay small, independent, and
yeah,
focus on the quality?
yeah, I don't really want to grow much bigger than we are now, to be honest. I like where we're at, and it's really important. I mean, like I said earlier, dream of a cafe with roasted brown was about community and hospitality. And my community has changed now. It's not sitting in front of me on couches and chairs, in a cafe. It's through you and the shop owners and the baristas that we work with. And it's really important to me that um those people feel like they have my attention, and that they know that our coffee has my attention. And we do have a lot of capacity for growth. I mean, that machine back there could be roasting a lot more than we're roasting on it for sure. There's loads of space for growth. But from a human perspective, we're a small team, and we want to make sure that the people we're supplying feel looked after. And so for the next 6 months, the only real growth with roasted brown will be to existing shops that we supply. If they're opening a second or a third shop, we'll continue to supply them because they're already a customer. And then there's a few people we've been in conversation with since last year who are setting up one or two shops. And so we're going to carry on those conversations. But other than those things that aren't already in relationship or conversation with us, we're not actually taking on any more roasted brown business for the next 6 months anyway. And basically what I'm doing there is I'm measuring how well we can handle customer service with the amount that we have now. And if everyone is happy, maybe we'll grow a bit more, maybe we won't. We're just, I've always kind of felt that work-life balance is important. And yes, there can always be growth. And yes, you can always sell more coffee and gain more financial wealth, maybe. But I like having headspace. I like not being stressed. I have 4 kids and I like them to have my attention when I go home rather than me being over busy. And so I bring a lot of things into the equation there. So I like where we're at now. I really like it. I'm really comfortable in it. And so yeah, that's for roasted brown. That's what I'm thinking. I do have some other projects that I have on paper and kind of in process, in and around sustainability and different things like that. And so I like that now I have time to work on that as well. So that's kind of the plan for now. And look, we're still in a pandemic and we're going to be in it for another year anyway. And I'm kind of happy not to shake things up too much, and let's all just kind of work hard and get
Yeah,
through this.
it's difficult to plan anything right now during the pandemic, as you probably know. And like
Yeah,
I was, I've got so much planned in the last year, which I want to carry on in 2020 or 2021, and I have to cancel everything and just postpone or just forget about it.
yeah.
Um, but what I see, what's happening right now on the current market, it's like opening like those trailers, as you said, or mobile coffee shops. If you think that's the shorter future or longer future for a coffee industry right now?
I think it's a short future. Yeah, I think I can say that. Like, I started off in mobile coffee myself, and I started my coffee business in a recession too. It wasn't a pandemic; it was a different type of crisis, and in that kind of a season is an opportune time to set up a trailer and pitch it somewhere and sell lots of coffee on the weekends or at a park or at the beach. Um, and so I think it's a great short-term plan. I don't think it's the future
Mm.
of how coffee should go. And I tell anyone thinking that they've got long-term plans in trailers, I tell them to think very carefully about that for lots of reasons. One, it's really hard to work in that environment all the time. It really gets to you after a while. It's uncomfortable. It's not cozy. It's cold. It's wet. There's a lot of moving parts, and after a year, it gets really tiring. And then the county council and EHO are being very lenient at the moment, because they're allowing people to sell coffee out of trailers and car parks and here and there and everywhere. They're allowing it at the moment, and they normally don't.
So the thing's gonna change when this situation will stabilize and with the virus situation.
Yeah, and that's actually really sad. I always, having lived in Australia, New Zealand, and other places, watching, and even seeing in America, watching how government and council encourage that kind of behavior, it still seems a little bit anti-business here, and as soon as they can jump on you and say we have to tender that, and whoever wins the biggest bid wins. And my friend in New York was paid by council to come and sell coffee at an event. It's just a very different mindset, and so that's going to be shut down, that kind of stuff, pretty quickly after the pandemic, and that's really sad. I wish our government didn't work that way, but that's the way it goes, and so I think if you're doing that, think about it short term and make hay while the sun shines, as it were, and use it as an opportunity to catapult yourself into
build up the name.
Yeah, and that's what we did, and in fact, I didn't even really know I was doing that, but that's what happened, and so I'd kind of say, yeah, it is a great idea. If you have a pitch and if you have permission and you think you're going to sell at least 200 cups of coffee a day, do it, and take it 6 months portion at a time. And if you enjoy it, then consider moving that into another coffee business or bricks and mortar premises,
Good. So like, just want to go back to the roasting. Like you said, the lowering can do much more. But is there any specific coffee which you been afraid of to roast by difficulties of roasting by density, for example, or maybe price range, or like, I don't know, like I'm not the roaster. I know just some coffees for me are difficult to brew because of specific characteristic of the beans.
Yeah, I think that's only down to probably a lack of understanding of the bean, and I think it's the same with us. If we're never really afraid to roast a coffee or buy a coffee. Sometimes the parameters might change of why we would buy a coffee. If we fell in love with a fantastic coffee that was going to cost us 10 times more than we normally pay for coffee, we would probably do a pre-sale of that coffee and say, okay, who's interested in this amazing 92 scoring coffee? Put your name on it now. We're going to buy it, roast it, and sell it to you. We're probably not going to take in a load of that coffee and do some test batches that don't work. And, we'll just be more informed. And likewise with you as a barista, if you get a new coffee you should ask more questions about it so that you're more informed. And you might use a different temperature of water, you might use a different type of water, or you might use a different recipe.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, there's a lot of really good roasters in Ireland, a lot of really good roasters who are all doing a great job. But if you apply the same methodology to each roaster, you're going to miss out. Because different roasters roast to different waters and roast to different parameters. And you need to know how that roaster wants their coffee to be brewed. I think sometimes we can be very quick to like brew something new, taste it. Oh, that's not great. I don't like that roaster. Whereas actually the question should be, I wonder how the roaster thinks this coffee should be brewed, and get that tip, because maybe it needs more extraction or a bigger ratio or a different water temperature, So likewise in the roaster, if there's something that, is increasing the stakes on price and reducing the room for me to practice with it, I'll just try and get more information on it from the supplier. And then I'll sample roast it in a little 50-gram batch first. I'll probably do that 2 or 3 times so I'm not wasting a lot of it. And then I'll make some decisions, a bit more informed by putting it into the machine before I put it into the machine.
So we're staying with the coffee. What is really interesting recently, and I think that's loads of people were surprised, your decaf. Sugarcane processing, very sweet. Like loads of people says, "Oh no, this is not decaf. This because it couldn't be decaf because it doesn't taste decaf. Doesn't taste those pungent taste of decaf. Why? How? Why? What?" In a few words.
Couple of things have changed there. I mean, sugarcane process is relatively new, and again, every good roaster in Ireland is using it, and even some bad roasters are using it. It's a bit more expensive, but it's the method of extracting caffeine from the bean is done in sugarcane vats instead of like sparkling water vats or whatever like that, and so it's just got a natural extra sweetness to it. But that kind of process is also being applied to, cleaning regular coffee, caffeinated coffee, and a lot of sugarcane bats being used in Brazil and stuff like that to bring sweetness to the coffee. And so it's great and it's perfectly valid. And so yeah, we're only buying sugarcane processed decaf now because it is that much sweeter. But that's not the only thing that's changed. Our approach to decaf has changed as well. We're taking it more seriously. We're really, it used to be it's funny, there wasn't a lot of people buying decaf 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden it seems like everyone's gotten pregnant and aren't drinking too much caffeine. And so we've had to kind of take it more seriously. For the first few years we didn't sell decaf because we weren't into it. I didn't like the taste of it, so I didn't want to sell it. And so then, there was a bit of a demand for it and people were getting upset with us. So we thought, okay, well, we better do decaf. So we find a decaf and just kind of roast it and not really pay much attention to it. And people were just happy that we gave them decaf. And no one really had any high expectations for it. So it was fine, whether it was under roasted or over roasted, whatever. People were just...
I have to admit that it's beautiful, beautiful coffee. Beautiful, tasty coffee.
Yeah, so we pay a lot of attention to it now, and we don't just bang it in the roaster and make it brown. We actually we focus on the curve now, and we're learning how to manipulate sweetness in the decaf too. And it's really tasty. It's great.
Yeah. So, last question, and we're gonna finish. Any possibility to visiting you in the roaster and see how it works, everything, while the pandemic gonna stop and allowed us to travel a little bit more and visiting people and get us contact with other people?
Yeah, who are you asking for?
For myself, for people who love coffee. I don't know, maybe some small tour for best customers.
Yeah,
I don't know, like 5-6 people, for example.
We actually love having our customers down to the roastery. It typically happens on like a Thursday afternoon, and some people jump in a van and they come down and we do a cupping. We do like a demonstration roast, tell a little bit of the history of roasted brown, and it's really fun for us to do that. And we love doing it. And yeah, we've kind of been missing that a bit with the pandemic, and we just have to, I know we're allowed to keep operating because we're considered essential business. We also have a responsibility, and we're just not letting people into the roastery at the moment. But definitely, absolutely, definitely, when this gets out of our hair, you should take the Triangle crew down for starters, and then I'd go a bit further and say, why don't you pick your top 5 coffee geek customers from the shop?
Maybe we can set up some competition for our customers and who've been lucky after
Yeah,
pandemia.
yeah. I'll leave that to you. You're the event manager.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Yeah,
I
no, we
think
like
that
having
that
people
was
down here. Yeah, yeah. We used to run a lot of classes and tasting classes and stuff like that, but it just became too busy, and we needed to focus more on just coffee
yeah,
and buying people. But yeah, no, 100%. We love that.
perfect, Finger. Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. I
Cheers.
wish you all the best with the all coffees which you're gonna get from Ethiopia, from Kenya, hopefully
Yeah, yeah. We
from Costa Rican.
just picked our. I wasn't able to go down there, but we just picked our new Chalbessa, which will be coming in June. And we're bringing in a container of it, and can't wait. I mean, that was just an amazing coffee. And then we're just about to move on to. There's a few more weeks of our Ethiopian natural, which is Chalcheli. But then we're opening. We've had it in the roastery a while. Our Costa Rica Alma Negra from the Las Lajas farm, and every year everyone goes bananas for that coffee. It's really, really good. So that's coming in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, can't wait.
Keep your eyes peeled for that one.
Perfect, Fergie. Sorry, Fergus. No superstar. Thank you very much for a chat, and hopefully we're gonna see you soon,
Yeah,
either in Delgany, either in Donabay.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thanks.
good night.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.